I want to talk about the P&L and the balance sheet. Now, I'm not an accountant and I know very, very little about accounting, but I do realize because one of my new doctors we were having a discussion and I mentioned something about uh, letting her see the P&Ls and so forth. She said, well, I don't know what a P&L is. And then I realized, well, she has a master's degree, but I never taught you anything about a P&L, a balance sheet, so forth, any kind of accountant. And I was thinking that since I graduated dental school about 100 years ago, that maybe dental schools have started teaching some of this. If you're going to be in business, you do want to understand some of the basic things. And the reason being, I think about when I first started making money. I had owned a couple of practices, but I really didn't make real money until I opened Kids Dental Care. And the first one, I opened. I think I opened two the first year, and I was banging. I was making money, and I made some mistakes. I didn't have an understanding. I went out and bought the biggest Mercedes they had, the 500 C series. I was like, bang, I'm doing it. I'm making money, and I was making money really quick. And I decided I'm going to wait because the accountant was saying you need to pay in estimated taxes. I said, well, you pay taxes at the end of the year. He said, but because you're making a lot of money, it's advisable to pay quarterly taxes and estimated taxes. And I decided, no, I'm going to do it my way. I'm the one that's making this money. It's my money. I'll pay them. I'm making a lot of money. I'll pay them when I get there. But anyway, I started growing really fast and doing things and buying things. And the next thing you know, I got in trouble with the IRS. Last one you want to be in trouble with is the IRS because they hit you with penalties and interest. And I wound up having to call my family. Don't want to have to call family, but if you do have family and you're in trouble, hopefully you have family that will come to your rescue. But they're going to talk about it and they're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, interrogate you, and then look at you cross-eyed at Thanksgiving dinner table. So you got to get this thing right. You don't want to have to be reaching back every time. So I'm trying to warn you. Here's the thing you do. First, find out what the P&Ls are and what a balance sheet is. Those are basic things that you have to understand. And trust your CPA. Don't get an accountant that's not certified because they don't have any stake in it. They can run you down a road and it could be the wrong road. You need to understand that this is something that the person in the corner you have to trust them. So what happens is my CPA had advised me to pay in these estimated taxes. I didn't start there and I got myself in trouble. But I stuck with the same CPA firm for many years because I've been audited 4 times, guys. I was audited 4 times. Why? I don't know. I don't know why. But the one thing that my CPA always said, but Dr. Lanier, you pass every one with flying colors. So I stuck with them. I mean, this was uh, the one thing you want is when you have the audit, your CPA said, no problem. I got you. You want that. But you do want to understand because one of the questions I had, and I was upset that first year because like I said, I bought that big Mercedes. And I'm trying to remember if I bought the house that year, but I was doing really well as far as bringing in income, but then I wasn't paying my taxes, and then I didn't take in that much money except for the car. Didn't buy the house because I remember telling him I only bought the car, and I don't have that kind of cash. I know my take home, and that's what we're used to. If you work and you work the W-2, you work the job most of your life, the only thing we're looking at is our take home. We know they have some W-2 deductions, Social Security, FICA, computer, all of those kinds of things. But basically, what we're looking at most of the time is the bottom line. So I'm looking at my bottom line and my take home, and I'm thinking, I didn't make that kind of money. And now you're telling me, no, doctor, you're very profitable. And I'm thinking, who the hell are you? What telling me I'm profitable? And I'm telling you what kind of money I took out. And then he had to explain to me about you're paying down your debt servicing and you're paying down some of these things like your loans that you have for the equipment and so forth. And I'm thinking, well, those should be deductible expenses as I go. But now you find out the interest on those loans is straight deductible as an expense. But then if you're buying equipment or if you're buying buildings and so forth, then those are depreciated over a period of time. Now, trust me, I'm not an attorney. Don't take my word. I mean, I'm not an attorney, nor am I a CPA. So if you really want to know, ask your CPA. I'm just throwing things out there so that I can stimulate your mind to go and search for it. Take some courses. Ask your attorney. You know, a good one to study is Chat GPT. Ask a whole bunch of questions or prompts. You know, my daughter is in high school and um, they're using prompts in grade school now. They're saying prompts rather than we used to say the question is, they'll say the prompt is. So with something like chat, throw it in there, prompt it, ask good questions about the P&L and the balance sheet. What's the difference? Is the P&L and the income statement? No, they're the same. So I asked some questions. So I wanted to share some things with you guys. Some of the things that I think are beneficial if you're in dentistry and you kind of just getting your feet wet in this thing. You want to have an understanding of where you're going and how you're doing. One, not all of the time the money's and you're growing something, then you're not going to see it all as take home. And the reason being is like this, and I did print out something. If you don't mind, I'll look for it and I read because I um, tend to forget some things. Again, I'm a I'm a self-professed entrepreneur dentist, and I want you to, if you're doing this thing in business, get out there and name it, claim it. That's why I say you should be an entrepreneur dentist. You don't have to get a degree. Everyone wants to get a certificate or something on the wall. Hell, I can print one for you if you want one. But you want to call yourself an entrepreneur because then you're going to start doing the things that an entrepreneur would do. And an entrepreneur is a businessman, and you start learning some business so that you can go to that next level because they just don't teach this in dental school. But the reason being is the key reason you're paying down debt because it doesn't feel like you're really making it, but at the same time you're paying down debt. You're building equity, and your cash flow might not reflect that because you're looking at take home and cash flow, and then so with the business you have first you have revenues. That's gross revenues, money's coming in, so forth. Now you have your expenses, and then after your expenses you have net profit. But then with the profits, you could have seemingly a lot of profit, but now you have taxes. So then you have to offset that with deductions and depreciation and so forth. So that's where the accountant comes in and they have to do their dance on that. But it's better if you strategize that up front so that you can know. And if you're really worried about your take home, if you're a dentist, owner dentist, then you're looking at establish a W 2 so that you're paying your Social Security. You know what you're going to get at the end of every 2 week pay period, but then you have profits on the side. And dentistry, I'm telling you, is the best friggin' thing that you can invest in, especially if you're a dentist. Why would you invest in something else? I do have money in the stock market, but I'm not even handling that. I have my portfolio manager takes care of that because I tried it myself. I didn't do too well. The only thing I know really well is dentistry, and I know pediatric dentistry even better than I know adult dentistry. But I try to, if I'm working with someone and I'm doing adult dentistry, I want to get someone who's expert at that. But then you have to have people who are your finance people who can do a really good job. But if you're in the driver's seat, you kind of need to understand what's going on. Why this? Why that? So that's why you have to answer these questions. Why does it seem as though I'm making less, even though you're telling me that I'm doing really well and being profitable? Well, from the CPA standpoint, you are being profitable or the business because now you're growing equity, you're accumulating assets and so forth. So you become asset rich and you build equity, and then whatever you're working on, it starts to appreciate. Now you're building wealth. You're building wealth, and whereas before, if it's just the monies that you take home, you can get rich, but you're not really building wealth until you start to build equity in something and assets. So a little more about that. So your taxes, depreciation, amortization, all of those are affect the reported profits differently than just cash available. So those are things that you have to consider and talk to your CPA about those things. So your business need working capital. So all profits are available as as salary. You have to have, you can't use everything that's coming out. You got to have some working capital. So you have to leave a lot into the business, and you're buying equipment. You're buying, and if you bought the building, you're debt servicing that. So you're paying your mortgage down. So don't expect a whole bunch of cash in your pocket just because, and then don't get all cross-eyed crooked just because you don't see it. You already have an understanding. And if you really want to do it right, set yourself up, get the W 2, and take W 2. And that's another thing. A lot of doctors are fighting about, they don't want to be W 2. In the state of California, as a owner, I have to put my doctors now on a W 2 because the state and the federal government says unless you meet these certain qualifications, you cannot be a 1099 employee. And people will actually quit, which doesn't really make any sense. They'll quit a job to go looking for another one that they could get. But if you only have yourself riding from one job to the next, you're avoiding some things. Maybe you're not paying your Social Security, but you'll regret that later. The best thing is take the W 2, take some of your money and invest in dentistry. It's one of the best things going. You don't want to start your own dental office, invest in something with somebody else and let them run it, but you have some equity in there. So now you're building something. And if you're with somebody that you think are going to do is going to do it right, and build, now you're building wealth, and because now your assets are growing, and one day maybe you could sell it, you take it to the market, you sell, and you do it over again. It's like almost like just flipping things, but you're getting in dentistry something that you know, something you believe in, and you can make a lot of money. But why not invest it in something you know and grow more? Because if only thing you're looking for is this W 2 or working for somebody and fighting with me about, well, I want more cash so that the government could take more of it. No, take your salary, take what you have, and invest in the dentistry itself. And now you get all of these write-offs, these deductions, and different things that you can do. Even with the building, I remember I'm trying to call the name of it, so I have to come back. Sometimes your mind slip. That's why I should have everything written out. But I'll call the name of it. You get old and you start to forget some terminology sometimes. But let me go. So I asked ChatGPT, well, where do equipment and mortgage payments appear on the financials? Because that's what you're looking at. Your P&Ls, your profit and loss, are something that you can look at monthly, quarterly, whatever, so that you can see how the business is operating, whether your expenses, so forth, where you at, how it is doing compared to last year this time. And your balance sheet just shows you your amount of assets, your net worth of the business, because you have assets and you have liabilities. So if you have a lot of loans, you've accumulated these kinds of assets, but you still have some loans and so forth, so you have some liabilities. That's what your balance sheet shows you. But as you're paying it down, and that's why it's a snapshot, because as you're paying down your debt servicing, then your liabilities are going away, they're coming down, and hopefully your assets are going up. Now you're starting to make money, and that's a beautiful thing. I remember this one guy that I had working as my CFO. Um, Man, I like Howard. He could do some things. We separated because of different things, but I did like, he was like, Doc, you got a minute? Come in, and he could make those spreadsheets jump, and he could just throw charts and show me everything. He was like, this is where you are on debt servicing. This one will fall off at this time, and then you have this that'll be that, and your assets are going up here. I really like just stopping in his office and letting him run it through, because I didn't want to go through all of that stuff myself, and I hate trying to create spreadsheets. He could make a dance for me and show me everything. I really like that portion of it. Um, so you need to be able to see your business from that standpoint. You don't need to be able to do all of the accounting yourself. You need to just understand what the accountant is telling you and why it works. But don't look for your accountant to make decisions for you. You accountants and attorneys, they tell you where the law is and how things work. They're not there to strategize for you. If you're an entrepreneur, you got to come up with the strategies yourself. So it's a learning process. This thing about the financials and money is something you need to understand because it kind of helps you in your strategy. So you can say if this, then that, and so forth. And growing fast, you're going to have some debt servicing, and you don't want to get too far in over your head when you're getting these loans and so forth, because now you're paying back all of these things in debt servicing. You have your taxes. Don't forget, Uncle Sam gets his. Give it to them. If your CPA says pay it quarterly, I sign the check every time. Since I got in trouble and I had to go borrowing money from people I knew, family, um, I decided it's you. So when my accountant sends in the thing, he just emails and he'll tell my admin to have Dr. Lanier print a check for X amount and send in estimated taxes. I don't ask any questions, and he sends it. I pay it. I've never been in trouble since then. The one time I got beat down because I got beat really bad. I think next I was about $150,000 behind, and before I know it, it's gone up to 170. This and it keeps going. You got to grab somebody, help me, help me, help me, and let me get right and get out of this thing. It only takes one time. And then once you learn, you give Uncle Sam his first because, but you find strategies. And oh, the term I was looking for, and bought buildings, and one of my friends, and I have to apologize to James because I didn't follow his advice. I thought it was a scam or something. I didn't think James was a scam because I like him, but I thought he was making a mistake. But it's called cost segregation, and there's some beautiful things you can do if you own a business. I'm telling you, I don't know why. I think it's fear and fear of the unknown, and probably rightfully so for a lot of people. But there's so many things that you can take advantage of when you own a business. And if you own the business and like with dental, they'll even finance the building for you. If you get the right building, don't let me force you to go out and get a building and you get the wrong building and now the practice isn't doing well and now you got a building and that isn't. So get location, location, location. And you get the right building though, and they'll finance it. And the banks will loan a dentist money. We're one of the low risk professions in the country. They are happy to loan money to dentists if you have a good plan and you have a little bit of experience or you're running with someone. So here's the thing, the building itself, you get to do what is called cost segregation. And that breaks everything out so that you could do what is called accelerated depreciation. So now you're making profit, and rather than giving it all back to Uncle Sam, you can do these depreciate equipment, depreciate the building, and so forth. Accelerated depreciation that puts more money back in your pocket, but at the same time, you're debt servicing, you're paying down these liabilities, and you're accumulating assets and you're building equity in the business. I'm telling you, this is where you go. If you really want to make wealth, you want to build some wealth, but most people focus on, I want money in my pocket at the end of the month, I want this, or I want to see that top line revenue of how much I made, even though you made X amount and the government got half of it, and you're never going to get it back. And just to say, well, I'm 1099, I'm going to write. What can you write off if you're 1099 and the only thing that you have to write off is your car driving back and forth to work, and you can't deduct all of that. You only get certain mileage. You get the mileage back and forth to work and certain amount per mile that they allow you to write off. And there may be a few other things you could say. Well, there's a little spot in my house. I do some business things. and you could write that off. But if you own the business, or and don't be in business alone and by yourself, you have to actually you actually have to get with somebody who knows what they're doing to grow a business. At this point, I think because the competition has changed, the whole landscape has changed. Dentistry isn't what it was 30, 40 years ago, and it's not what it was 10 years ago. Everything is changing. So really, the thing I talked about in one of my previous live was actually the thing of owning a business and getting to grow equity is where you grow your wealth. You cannot just sit there and think that I'm going to save enough money on this. You really, when you have a liquidity event, and you can look that one up. When you have a liquidity event, that's when you realize I'm making money. All of that money that you were like, hey, my take home pay isn't what I wanted. And then over a few years, now you're building equity in something. And now when you go to market, take your little piggies to the market, then you get a big payday. And that's when you can do things like set up a foundation and so forth. Reason you have to set up a foundation at that point is because the government's going to hit you with so much taxes that you don't want to. You could either set up the foundation and give it away to institutions, nonprofits, or you can just give it to the government, or you can set up these foundations, help your whether it's religious or school or whatever, and you give money back. And I've set up foundations. There's things like people talk about things like the SB lock or securities backed line of credit. You don't even need to know that unless you have enough money. If you don't have securities or you don't have a few $1 million in there, you really don't need to study it. But if you do, then there's some beautiful things because wealthy people write the laws. They have lobbyists and they write the laws for the wealthy. One of the big things right now, the president of the United States, a big real estate tycoon. Do you not think that all of the laws are going to benefit real estate investors? Of course they will. And the thing about uh, taxes, the 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 IRS is trying to encourage people, and this is the United States in general. Feds want you to invest in a business. They need small businesses to grow, so they give certain advantages, tax advantages to business. Because if you think about it, taxes are the biggest killer of wealth. If you're paying half the money you get in taxes, you're not keeping anything. So they allow you to do certain things and write it off in the business, get deductions, and then over time you're accumulating equity and all of these assets, and you become wealthy because you have a lot of assets that are and the beautiful thing is sometimes it's not even stepped up. I realize there's another terminology I was uh, talking about or thinking about recently because I have a couple of properties that when I sold my previous business, these are dental offices. I had a couple of offices that are being rented to the company that purchased the business. So I bought these offices a long time ago. So and I paid for it free and clear, but that equity is just sitting there. They're throwing off, they're cash flowing, really. Cash flow. Cash flow is pretty much the same thing as profit. It's cash flowing, it's throwing off profit. Your cash is flowing. So these businesses are cash flowing well. And well, everything is profit because they're paid for. But rather than just leaving it there, I have to pull out this equity so that I can leverage that to do some other things. I like this thing. It's business, and unless you've done it, the reason I do it because a lot of people say, "Well, Dr. Lee, you already did it. You retired, and you do." I like the game. I like the game, and the next step, things that I've never done before. That's when I get kind of juiced. I want to go at that. I said, well, if I refinance, take this, parlay that into other things. So now we're starting a new DSO and we need financing. And there are conventional ways of going at it. And then there's a workaround. I kind of got where I'm going doing the workaround. There's a lot of obstacles that were in my way moving forward. So rather than stand there and try to beat my way through a brick wall a lot of times, I just decide, well, I'm going to do a workaround. And the workaround sometimes can be expensive. In the initial phase, when I was starting kids dental care, back in the day, interest rates, I think back then, the interest rates were about 13%. I wind up borrowing hard money at about 22%. Gangster kind of stuff, you know. So I'm paying, but I got started. And some of these loans, and they had these prepayment penalties. You couldn't pay them off. If it's 22%, you could pay it off early, but it's still 22%. You're not going to walk away from that. And I didn't realize some of them I had signed in it before I even realized, but I did get it back in the business. I went from trying to file for bankruptcy and to really just really everything cash flow. And I'm making all of this money, went out and got, like I said, my big Mercedes and got myself in problems with the IRS, making all of this money. And you start to learn. And you're not going to learn until it's like learning to swim. You can't learn to swim if you just standing on the bank and watching videos. You can watch this video, but until you get in the water and learn to swim, it's not going to matter. But don't get in business by yourself if you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. And then there are things that you know that you don't know that you don't know. They're out there. So be in business for yourself, but not by yourself, because all of these things are pertinent. You have to understand all of these things if you're going to make it work. I'll go back to a little bit of what I was saying. I know I jump around a lot, but these are things I wanted to just cover. These concepts. Again, I want to talk about depreciation, amortization. So amortization is more about intangibles. So if you have a loan, then you're going to buy a practice, and you can amortize the goodwill over 15 years. So you buy a practice, it's got so you purchase goodwill, you amortize that over a certain amount of time, and that is a deduction on your profit and loss, and it doesn't affect your cash flow. But your depreciation is spread out. Let's say the cost of equipment. So you're buying this equipment, and now you depreciate the equipment itself. You buy $100,000 worth of dental chairs, and you deduct $20,000 a year for 5 years. So that deduction on the profit and loss does not affect your cash flow. A little bit complicated, right? But you're going to have certain things that are above the line, and then there are other things that are below the line that affect net profit. And those are the ones that can kind of throw you off. Or like, wow, I don't have that money. My take home is affected. So, but the depreciation does affect the profits. Once you get the profits, now if you're going to get taxed a lot, you can apply those deductions and depreciations on that. Hopefully I didn't confuse you. Like I said, talk to your accountant. Just remember, you want to ask about that. You can also plug it into Chat GPT. I'm just telling you, you want to know and understand this because it's something that can help you or it can hurt you if you don't understand. And I put it in here, and just some of this I'm going to read. It's like, why does that matter? It matters because this depreciation lowers taxable profits, reducing your taxes that you owe. So that's your thing, because if you get profits, Uncle Sam wants half of it, and you have to find a way. Like I said, the biggest killer of wealth, of accumulating wealth, is paying taxes. That's why the wealthy avoid paying taxes by using strategies that are set up. But so let's say I'm not wealthy yet, but I want to adopt some of these strategies. Well, the first thing is get a business. There's a lot of things that you probably could do that I don't know about, but the only thing I could talk about, get a business. A business is the primary way you're going to do it. I know a lot of people try to avoid it. No, I just want to work for somebody. And it's good, work for somebody, but you're going to invest in a business so that you can get those things. Because even if you're an investor and you're not the one running the business, if you invested in the business, you still get those deductions and appreciations, depending, on a pro rata share. So those things really matter. However, depreciation does not affect your actual cash flow. You already spent the money when you bought the asset, but now your profit, you get a chance to depreciate some. So, what does that mean for your take home pay? Okay, your business shows a profit, but it must be tied up in debt payments and assets and so forth. So if you're not seeing the take home, it's tied to your asset accumulation and the debt servicing. And that is a good thing. It's just that you need to understand it so that you don't get really confused at the end of the quarter, end of the year when it's time to pay the taxes. So you're earning equity in your assets, your equipment, your real estate, your goodwill, so forth, but you don't feel it because it's not liquid. It's not liquid cash. And that was the thing that I wasn't feeling because I was used to what goes in my pocket. And it took me a long time to realize I'm building wealth. And when you're building wealth, it's not going to show at every day when you go home. You're not going to be able to show it to your husband or wife and say, well, look here, I did all of that. And really, it's when you're accumulating wealth, it's not a thing that you really get a lot of celebration. Nobody's going to throw a ticker tape parade for you. You're doing well. Your husband or wife, you come home, it doesn't change the way they talk to you or whatever. So it's a lot of things that you have to just put in your back of your mind and know that you're on this journey and that you're building something bigger. Because if you want that instantaneous microwave kind of thing, then the business may not be for you. Like I said, the biggest thing you look forward to when you're owning a business is a liquidity event. And I know a lot of dentists get tied to this thing. Well, no, I plan to have this for the rest of my life, and I'm going to just sit here and work. And I talked about that last time. A lot of times people work until the business starts to go down, down, down. And if you have like and unless you have someone working, an associate or someone who you're going to sell the business to, you should be building it to sell it to somebody or some entity. Because if something happens to you and you're out, let's say for instance you're out and you have your disability insurance, but you're out for a month, 2 months. You didn't really couldn't get an associate because it was unexpected. You were in a car accident or something, and or you got really sick unexpectedly, and now the business is closed for a few months. Well, by the time you get back, your patients are probably gone to someone else, and now you come back, and rather than working 5 days a week, you're working 3 days a week. Now the practice has started to go down. The value in the practice is going down, and then the equipment is getting older. And now you're sitting there with something that really has lost a lot of value. And when most dentists, by the time they try to exit, they're selling something that nobody wants. Nobody wants old equipment. Nobody wants your old build out, really, unless it's making money. So you want to sell at the top of the market when you have that, because you could always do it again. But I like my patients and I like the neighborhood. Yeah, just go across town or something and do it again, and then sell that and make a lot of money. I'm not saying, I think, and sometimes I know people are thinking, well, he's only thinking money. No, but I'm an entrepreneur. Like I said, self-professed. I don't have a degree that says entrepreneur, but over my door at my headquarters, I have entrepreneur dentist. Why? I keep reminding myself that's who I am, a businessman. And if things like accounting, I have my CPA, I have different people. And now I just hired my niece as my CEO. She has that MBA and she understands a lot of things. And we're moving to that next level. I have operations. I don't have to understand all of it about everything I'm doing, but I do need to understand the general topics. And I know how I want it to run, know the direction. And so I always talk about the three M's of actually doing business: is money, management, and marketing. I'm more a marketing guy. I come from sales and marketing, so and that's the backbone. If you have that, you can and you can have a constant flow of new patients and recall patients. You're going to do well regardless. You're going to make money, but you may not understand where it went unless you can kind of get your hand around some of this financial literacy thing. You want to build some financial literacy. You want to understand how I'm accumulating wealth. You don't have to do all the terminology. I did the executive MBA, and the main thing, like I said, is that I walked away from that was the economy of scale. It's important. The economy of scale is very, very important. And I also talked about arbitrage. That was another thing I kind of learned about. But the economy of scale, you find in a lot of these programs, and people are throwing things around and kind of piss me off. Well, what's the delta? I'm like, what? What the hell is talking about? What the delta? And I find that sometimes those are MBA students trying to show how smart they are and get confused, and it doesn't really help you make any money just talking about what's the delta. I think that's trying to show you're smart or something. But I think the real thing is I did understand that really the reason economy of scale, and that's why just being in something by yourself, you can't scale if it's just you. You can't scale if you just got one office. You can't take advantage of the economies of scale. And if you are going to do it, do you have time to build out the entire network, or do you want to join forces? Most dentists, because we come from that thing of dentists being sole proprietors and so forth, everybody wants to stand alone. But if you see why the DSOs have such a higher valuation is because they do what is basically roll ups and acquisitions and so forth. Why? To build more scale, and there's economies of scale. So these are the kinds of things that you want to really, really understand is how do I get to that next level so that I increase my value, increase the value of my practice? And that one of the big things is scale. And the reason they do it is because of arbitrage. And arbitrage is just taking an asset at one price, combining it with others, and now that asset is worth more almost instantaneously as soon as they buy it, because now that increases their big growth, then that asset starts to increase and goes up. It was selling at a 3 or 4 multiple, and now once you join the big group, it goes up to an 8 to a 10 multiple. So those are things that are part of economy of scale, and that's why arbitrage, especially a lot of the DSOs, and when they go back for recapitalization, then that's how that fit in. But that's another story. Like I said, the main reason for today is to kind of go into what the P and L and the balance sheet is because someone asked me, and I realized, wow, they don't teach that in dental school. It's just something you don't get any understanding about, but you need to understand it. And the thing about taxes, because when you start making money, most of the time we think it's our money, but it really isn't. And if you want to keep a little bit more of the money Uncle Sam is grabbing, you got to have some strategies. And wealthy, rich people have already written on all the strategies. You need to understand why they do it and how they do it. And then you have to have someone that could take advantage of those. Like I said, when I bought the buildings, and my friend came to me about cost segregation, I was thinking, you're trying to get me in trouble. I don't. And later, years later, my CPA suggested that yes, you should do cost segregation, and you could even go back some years and do cost segregation on properties that you own. It could be a new building, or it could be a rehab or reconstruction, but you could still do the cost segregation, and you get those deductions on the accelerated depreciation. I mean, on your taxes. So you can use that in a year where you had a lot of profit and you're going to pay a lot of taxes. Now you can use those deductions to offset the profits, keep some money in your pocket. There's some strategies out there. I like it. And like I said, I'm refinancing a couple of buildings now so that I can pull equity out and use that. These are leverage things. But if you're pulling it out and you're paying back at 1%, let's say at 5 or 6%, and you're making 12, 15, 20% on the money by putting it in then that's when you call it good debt. you know and I have to really explain that to my wife because she's always afraid you're in debt. Yeah, but the debt I do is good debt. I'm not doing bad debt. I'm still driving an old car. I don't know why. It just doesn't make sense. I have an old Porsche, but I don't figure I need to go out and get a new one just because I have money. Because now I've kind of been through all of that, going out and getting a new Porsche, and Porsches aren't cheap. is pretty much bad debt. You know, you could do it just as a gift to yourself, but it's not good debt because if you're just taking on something that's a depreciating asset, then that's bad debt. If you're taking on some debt, so something that's going to put money in your pocket, that's good debt. So one is making money and the other one is losing money. And that's why even like what Robert Kiyosaki talks about, even your home, because everyone always said, well, my house is my investment. But the house is not necessarily an investment that is good debt because a house doesn't put money in your pocket, you know, until you sell it. But houses normally in land and so forth, they normally appreciate. They go up in value over the period of years. So you're going to make money on it. But right then, each month, you're paying that mortgage. It's not like they're paying you, you're paying the mortgage. So if you have something, you invest in something, and now it's putting money in your pocket, that's good debt. That's good debt, and that's really an investment. And whereas the other one is a liability. So, and that's another thing on those financials, you'll have assets versus liabilities. And liabilities, of course, are not good. Well, it's good in the sense that once you're doing business, you have some liabilities that's going to come. But the liabilities are considered negative, and the assets are the positive. And then your balance sheet is just telling you your liabilities and your assets and what how much you owe and what your net worth of that business is at any given time. Because, like I said, if you're servicing debt, you're paying it down. So next month, your balance sheet could show totally different and should show different than it does this month. It depending on whether you acquiring more things or just paying things off. Anyway, I'm just throwing out some things this morning. Hopefully, you can all get something from it. I don't want to confuse anybody. I just want to say it's something that we do need to look into and just start as far as you want to get an understanding, and I encourage everybody, get Chat GPT, get the paid version, because you can ask it things or prompt it, prompt something, and it'll give you an answer, and then it'll ask you, would you like to go further on it? That's why I get the paid version, because I was telling one of my brothers about this thing. He said, you must have the paid version, because mine doesn't do that. It's only $20 a month, get the paid version, and ask a lot of questions because one, there was something I wanted to ask my CPA the other day. I actually typed in the email and I was getting ready to hit send, and I said, rather than do that, let me paste it in Chat GPT and see what it gives me. Because I written a long one. What about this? Stephen, if I want to go here, then what am I going to? And you know, you just paste it in Chat GPT and it go, brrr, and I was like, damn, all of that. And just instantaneously. And then it asked me, would you like to go further down this rabbit hole? And I said, yes, give me more of that. And there it is. So this for attorneys. I mean, uh, my nephew's an attorney, and I have another nephew in law school, and I have a lot of friends who are attorneys. But I'm tired. Attorneys, they some are a ripoff. They every time you speak to, you know, and they go by a quarter hour. And I'm sorry, attorneys, I apologize. I need you, and I pay a lot of money to attorneys, but I'm trying to eliminate some of that. Some of the questions I have, some of the questions I have for CPAs, some consultant kind of things. I guarantee you, some of that is going to go away. Even the guys who are doing research, and the attorney say, "Well, I needed to have this research done and all of that." A lot of that is going to disappear. AI will change everything. A lot of things, whereas people, and I love it because I'm an entrepreneur, and a lot of times I pay people, they waste time, and then they come in, they got to go to the bathroom, they got to do this, they take off. AI never sleeps, never sleeps. You don't pay any more for it. You pay your subscription every month, and it'll work 24/7 for you, and it'll answer all of the questions that you have. And only thing you have to do is ask better questions. You ask better questions, you get better answers. Ask better questions, or um, don't ask. Just give it better prompts. And you don't have to say, can you please do this, do that? You don't even have to be nice to chat. You really don't. You just say, generate an email or generate this document for me. You don't have to say, please, sir, ma'am, anything. Did you go to the bathroom? What about your break? I want to make sure you punched out and I'm doing that. And it's on a quarter hour. None of that nonsense. None. I'm telling you. I know a lot of people are going to think, well, Doc, you're trying to eliminate. I am. I do not like this thing. Over the years, I've been in business a long time. People have really ripped me off a lot of times because they get paid by the hour. So they slow things down. They drive you around the corner 5 times, before they let you out. Chat doesn't do that, And Google Gemini and what's the others? But all of them do the same thing. But I use chat more than I do the rest. But I'm telling you, it's going to change everything that we're doing. So start using it. Start prompting, prompt, and you'll get a lot of answers. You'll get a lot of great things, and it'll take you down that road. A lot of times it will say, well, you still need to consult with your CPA or your attorney on this, but you'll get the understanding rather than asking them. So when you're ready to get with the paid person, whether CPA or attorney, you already know. And then you're just giving them directives on what you want done rather than asking them, well, what about if I turn over here and I turn left there? What's going to happen there? Don't ask them. Ask chat first and let it give you the answer. And then, even then, when you do bring it to your professional, let them know I've already researched this and this is what I came up with. So I'm just giving this to you to stamp it so that I have my professional there. Anyway, I've been talking a long time, and I don't want to bore anybody. I hopefully this thing can help somebody. I'd like to announce some of a couple of things that I have going in March. We have a big thing where I also a CE provider, dental continuing education courses, and March 15th we have pedo for GP. It's a big thing to attract a lot of GPs, and I have my pediatric clinical provider. He's board certified pediatric dentist. He's gonna do a couple of hours on that. We have our orthodontist doing ortho for GP, and an oral surgeon doing oral surgery for GP. So it's a full day, 8 hours credit in Fresno. But the thing is, that is going to lead to what we're trying to establish is a 1 year uh, fellowship program in pedo for GP, so that you have, because one of the things I see and I've talked about recently is there's a serious problem in the United States, especially serving the underserved, and mine is more about kids. There's a shortage of pediatric dentists, and because of that, most pediatric dentists do not treat the underserved or especially the Medicaid population. And most of them, 50% of all the kids in the state of California are on Medicaid. 50%. You hear me? I'm going to repeat it. 50% of all the kids in the state of California on Medicaid. And it pays, it's not as high as but it pays fairly well. And you need doctors. Most of the pediatric dentistry is performed by GPs. But I'll tell you, because I'm a GP and I've done pediatric dentistry all my career, there's a lot of people out there, GPs, trying to do it that shouldn't be doing it because they didn't take the time to really learn what they're doing. And we have, because the way our program is set up, I have the pediatric specialist that monitors, it teaches and then monitor and gives over the shoulder and so forth because I want things done right. I'm building an organization. I can't have somebody come in and just say, well, I'm going to do this for you and then run me in the ditch and then get up and leave and go work somewhere else. And now I'm trying to figure out how to get my company or organization. And that's one of the reasons I always say, I don't know where people come in and say, well, I want to work here, but I want autonomy. Say that again, autonomy? Because if autonomy means what I'm thinking that it means and what the dictionary says, that means you want to do what the hell you want to in my business that I put up all of these millions of dollars and I've established over all this time, built a reputation, and I just met you. You just come in and you want autonomy to do what? To say what time you go to the restroom? Okay. But to tell me what time to schedule patients, how you want this, that, no, we run an organization. I have operations. They know exactly how to, and it doesn't matter with you, Doc. If you come or you go, the business runs the same. It doesn't change. We have standards. We have a operational way that the business operates. So I think that's something I wish dental schools would stop. And one of the big thing is I know with DSOs, they tell the doctors you have autonomy because by law you can't tell a doctor what to do, how to practice, so forth. So they said, well, we're just going to do professional service. However, my practices are all Dr. Lanier's practice. So I'm a dentist. I can kind of tell you. One, I don't want to necessarily get down into minutia how to practice, but I do want to make sure that they're doing things right. So I want someone that is clinically uh, certified, board certified, to tell them this is what. And the good thing, sometimes the doctors want to argue back with the board certified pediatric dentist, and I like what he does. He said, well, according to the publications, and this is, and he always, you can go and research it. This is what the Academy of Pediatric Dentistry recommends. And that's the only thing. And if you go by that, you don't need autonomy. We're all doing the same. You're doing it right. Now, the other thing about autonomy, I've seen, whereas offices, doctors are scheduled for 9 o'clock, the patient standing outside the dental office, here it is 9:30, 10 o'clock, nobody even opened the door, or they get there and they're in and the staff is there and the door is open and everything is seated, patient's waiting, doctor comes in late. Oh, this doctor has autonomy, they show up whenever they want to, or this or that. And anyway, I just think it's a stupid thing to really request is autonomy. What do you want autonomy for? We're doing business here. I'm not trying to just come along and appease somebody and they don't know anything. You don't know anything about running the business. This is what I do, for umpteen years. So you do what you do. If you're clinical, come in and get really good at your clinical thing. And if you want to learn some business, start learning business. But if you learn business, you're going to do the same thing I do. You're going to set some standards. You're going to want to have expectations that and the reason you want everything standardized, you want to know if you got 10 offices, you don't want office A to be doing it this way, office E over here doing it a whole different way. You want to know and understand, because then when you get the phone call and they said this happened at your office, you're like, no, we don't do that at my locations. This is the way we do things. So, and then when someone deviates, now you can correct them. You can say, no, this is the policy. So it takes some time. It's a process of coming up with all of your different policies and your systems. And this is the way we do it here. But that's when you're really getting into, you start developing your systems, and now you prototype that, and once you prototype everything, now you can roll it out. You can roll out and say, well, I have the fifth. Like I said, I had about 30 offices over the years. I sold, when I sold to Western, I had 14. And then I took a break. Now I have kids to dentists. First was kids dental care, and now kids to dentists. And we're starting the fifth location. Those are all prototypes. That's my prototype because I've been out for a little while and I got back in. Some things changed slightly, but I get my prototype and I build a team. So you have to put together the band. You got to get the band back together again. So I went back and got some of my band members, and then we had some new additions. You come in, you get a new guitarist and lead guitarist and so forth, and you put the band back together again. You got to have all your members, and everything counts. When you have a band, you have the guy who does sound, who you never see, who's back there, and they're making things work. And then you have your lead singer, and that's me. I'm the lead singer, so I got to be out front. I want everything working right. You don't want things crackling in the background and going wrong, and you don't know. So I live near the Greek Theater, and I walk by there sometimes, and the band gets there early. They do sound check and so forth, and then they run through a little bit before the people start to show up. And then when everything is right, people come in, the performance is on, and everything is like that. And that's the way you want it happening. The other thing I do, and I'm going to close with this, I watch a lot of NBA basketball. That's the only sport. I can't follow all the sports. I know some people can follow football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, all of that. I waste of time. The only thing I do follow the basketball. But if you watch a little basketball, it looks like sometimes plays break down and then somebody just saves the day. They come in and do this and then they get a layup. But listening to the pros, now they have a lot of these talk shows, and they said when you see that second play is not accident. That's the play. That's the second play. If this one breaks down and someone and they get a double coverage on, then this guy that ran over here, that's practice. They already practiced that. If this one breaks down, then you do this, and then we go to that. So you got to have everything. You have to practice everything. You have a policy. You have the way it's going to work, your systems. This is how our systems work. It puts you in a different place. You start to move when you start to systematize. And don't get upset if things go wrong. The only time you get upset is when you don't write a policy. You have your major frustrations. You get frustrated about something. Develop a policy. Now you put it to sleep. You won't see that frustration again because I took care of it. And when I did, it's not just for that one time. I wrote a policy from now on. When this happened, this is what we're going to do. Now go drill on that, guys, because then we're going to get better at that. And I don't have to keep coming back to that. This is a policy. And you do that enough, after a while, your systems start to work. And when your systems work, you don't really have to. You get enough of that, you can take a break. Because one of the things I came up with over the years, and I still say it, if your money stops every time you stop, then you need to come up with a better plan. If your money stops, think about it. If your money stops every time you stop, you get up to go to the bathroom and your money stops. You go on vacation, your money stops. You're out sick, your money stops. No, I have disability. You still got to wait until that kicks in, and that's not going to pay a lot. It pays a percentage of what you were making before. But if you have somebody else, because I tell the story, one of my doctors asked me once, Doc, what's your disability insurance? And seriously, I haven't had disability insurance since I started Kids Dental Care 30 some years ago. Why? Because the doctors of my disability insurance doesn't matter. I don't work now, but my money is, I'm making money as we speak. I have people working, I think, at certain, I don't know which one is open, which one is closed today, but I guarantee you somewhere I'm making money. And that's the way you want to be. You're making money as we speak. That's the thing you want to get. And you can only do that if you own the business. Well, if you own stock market, you're constantly making money. Real estate, they're going to pay you every month regardless whether you get up or not. If you get to those things, that's why I say owning assets and having equity in something is much better than just fighting all of the time. I want more money on my W-2 so the government can take my money. Just think about it. Think about it. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but think about it. Okay? Good. Someone says, can I donate? But you have to shout, can I donate? Yeah, you can donate. Anybody, you know what? If you have something, you have some questions, or you want to be on the podcast and just do a live with me, I'm open to that. Anybody who wants to contribute something and you want to hear something, like I said, the reason I jumped on this thing about the P&Ls, because it was not what I was going to talk about, is I was talking to one of my doctors and she said, what is a P&L? And I was like, damn, there's a lot of stuff that dentists coming out, especially, don't know. And you want to start to learn some of these things. So we'll talk about some of that. A lot of things we could talk about. I'm just enjoying it. But a lot of things I don't know that you don't know that you want to ask. And if I don't know, I have resources. That's another thing. I'm going to close because it's almost an hour. Here we go. I realized when I'm trying to put together this the seminar coming up, I wanted some sponsors. And because I don't want to pay for the seminar myself, I got doctors coming and so forth, and I'm not going to charge the doctors a whole bunch of money. But if you get a hotel and all of these things, you got to have sponsors to do it. So I'm thinking it's short time because normally the budgets are set a year, 2 year at the beginning of the year, end of the year. They kind of allocate the budget for different things. So a lot of people say, "Well, we've already allocated the budget," but you know what? I have resources. A lot of these people I've been doing business with for umpteen years. So I call and when I send them an email, I said, "Hey, you remember me, Dr. Lanier? We've been doing businesses with you guys for the past 25 years. I need a huge favor. I'd like for you to be a sponsor at my event because we're doing a lot of business with you right now." Then of course I get a lot of sponsors because they know we're growing. They know we're spending money. I spent a lot of money with them. And even though they might not have had it on their schedule to do something like this or it wasn't in the budget, they don't want to offend somebody, that's because the amount that if it's $2,500, it's nothing to them. You want to keep the business. We're throwing off money to you all the time. So some of the people, I just start making phone calls. I was like, damn, all of a sudden I got sponsors. Why? Because I have resources. And as Tony Robbins once says, it's not, if we fail, it's not because it's a shortage of resources, it's a shortage of resourcefulness. And now I have time to sit back and think of how could I be resourceful to the organization, especially with the CEO coming in. And now I'm not the CEO. I don't have to run the business. Now I can think, how can I expand the business and lead them in the right direction while they run the operations and just grow this thing. And it's giving me a lot of freedom now. And now I'm realizing, damn, I have a lot of resources a part resource and I'm part of your resource. So if you send me something, I can't take phone calls all the time, people calling, and I return some phone calls, and some people I know, and I go back and forth. But if everyone would start calling me and just eat up some time, but if you send me a text or write a comment, ask me something, then I could do a topic on it. If you want to come on the show and just do the interview, talk about some things, where you're going, we can do that. Later, we're also setting up a thing called the Entrepreneur Advisors, whereas myself and some advisors can help people. Of course, that would be at a fee because, and I don't trade time for money. I'm an entrepreneur, so if I was trading time for money, I'm actually working for somebody. And I hate when somebody says, "Well, do you have a Calendly and I can skip?" I hate that because then I have to allocate certain times, and then you just insert something, and now I got to figure out what am I going to be at this time, and I have to do all of that. I don't like working, trading time for money. So I'm not going to really get into that, but some of my advisors may do that, and we can work together on a project occasionally. I don't know. We'll work on that. The Entrepreneur Dentist Advisors. Anyway, give us a like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let me know what you want to talk about. I think I have some things. If not, you can tell me, "Doc, that didn't help me at all." But if you see something, you know, say something. Let me know. All right. Thank you, guys.